Hey there. When you picture ancient Egypt, what exactly comes to mind? For most of us, we usually imagine this peaceful, highly advanced civilization, right? Lots of sun-drenched gold, stunning grandeur, serene pharaohs, the whole shebang. But what if I told you that entire perception is kind of wrong? If you actually look closely at their architecture and the archaeological record, you don't find a civilization at peace at all. Instead, you find a deeply paranoid society consumed by this desperate, high-stakes war for eternal life. What we're really looking at here is a massive 3,000-year-long arms race.
So to understand their absolute obsession with building these heavily fortified megatombs, we first have to understand the terrifying stakes of their belief system. You see, they believed in something called the second death. For the ancient Egyptians, physical death wasn't the end of the line. It was really just a treacherous transition phase. If their physical bodies were destroying on Earth, or if they failed the intense spiritual tests of the afterlife, they faced absolute and complete erasure. They wouldn't just go to a bad place. Their soul, their memory, their very existence would be annihilated forever. It's like being completely wiped from the hard drive of the universe. That was the ultimate terror.
In this explainer, we're going to hit 4 main stops: the quest for eternity, engineering the megatombs, Tutankhamun's strange burial, and finally, the threat of tomb raiders. Let's dive right in.
Starting off with Section 1, the quest for eternity and surviving the underworld.
Achieving paradise wasn't just a matter of hoping for the best. It was actually a grueling, terrifying journey. The underworld, which they called the Duat, was basically a nightmare realm, and navigating it was like a high-stakes survival game. The soul had to pass through 12 massive portals representing the hours of the night. And get this, they literally had to cross a sweltering lake of fire that was actively patrolled by 4 fearsome baboons. Yep, baboons. And they would only let you pass if you recited the exact correct magical spells. If you somehow survived that and the sheer scale of Apep, this massive serpent of chaos, constantly trying to devour the sun, you finally made it to the ultimate test in front of the Lord of the Underworld, Osiris.
This right here was the judgment phase, and man, the stakes could literally not be higher. On the scales of justice, Osiris would weigh the deceased's heart against the feather of truth. If you'd lived a good, moral life, the scales balanced, and you earned a ticket to the field of reeds. That was this lush, eternal paradise where magical laborers handled all the farming while you just hunted, feasted, and relaxed. Sounds great, right? But if your heart was heavy with guilt, a terrifying hybrid monster known as Amit, the Devourer, would snatch it up and eat it. Your soul would burn, and you would spend eternity trapped upside down, suffering the absolute erasure of that second death. It was that overwhelming fear that made extreme bodily preservation and impenetrable tomb security an absolute necessity.
Which brings us nicely to Section 2, engineering the megatombs, or the architectural arms race.
Driven by that intense existential fear of the second death, the ruling elite scaled up their defenses to unprecedented extremes. Remember, if their bodies were destroyed, their souls were destroyed. So they had to build fortresses. Long before the iconic pointy pyramids we all know, they constructed these massive structures called mastabas. They were built like absolute bunkers. Imagine the staggering physical labor here. They'd place the deceased 30 feet underground, plug the entrance with colossal limestone blocks weighing tons, and then pile a gigantic 100-foot mound of solid rock and mud brick directly on top. It was meant to be completely impenetrable, designed with pure paranoia to ensure no one could ever get in or out.
But over time, the pharaohs started to realize a fatal flaw. Massive above-ground structures like the Great Pyramids, they were essentially giant neon signs screaming, "Hey, there's unimaginable treasure in here." So, to escape the gaze of robbers, this architectural obsession moved entirely underground. Mentuhotep II carved a staggering 500 feet deep into the solid bedrock of a mountain. Later on, Senuseret III built a massive 600-foot-long snaking tunnel system that was literally a physical, real-world model of the underworld, and he plugged his burial chamber with 300 tons of impenetrable red granite. The paranoia absolutely peaked with his successor Amenemhet III. He tried to build a massive mud brick pyramid over an incredibly complex labyrinth, but the underground tunnels were so heavily over-engineered that the entire structure literally crumbled under the weight of its own paranoia before he even died.
Okay, moving to Section 3. Let's take a look at Tutankhamun's strange burial, because it is a true royal anomaly. Right in the middle of this high-stakes arms race for eternal security, we find the most famous pharaoh of all in what looks like a highly suspicious crime scene. Think about Pharaoh Seti I's tomb, which was built just 50 years after Tutankhamun. Seti has 10 massive rooms extending 450 feet deep, featuring these breathtakingly detailed, sumptuously carved artworks. But King Tut? A pharaoh famous worldwide for his solid gold coffin and unimaginable wealth, he was squeezed into a cramped four-room space, and the paintings on his walls look remarkably poorly executed. Honestly, it almost looks like a child did them compared to the elaborate carvings of the other pharaohs.
And the crazy thing is, this wasn't just poor planning. This was a cover-up. When Egyptologist Aliyah Ismail analyzed modern 3D laser scans of the tomb's walls, she effectively conducted a forensic CSI investigation. What she found was clear brushstrokes indicating the paint was hurriedly slapped onto the walls while the plaster was still wet. Whoever buried the Boy King was in an absolute, unbelievable panic to seal those heavy stone doors and get him completely out of sight.
So, what was the rush? Well, the Boy King was actually the victim of a ruthless political betrayal. Tutankhamun had inherited a severely fractured country because his father literally outlawed the old religion, which completely threw society into chaos. Tut reversed this, bringing back the old gods and re-empowering the priests. But when he died suddenly at just 19 years old, he didn't have an heir. Enter I, his top advisor. Sensing a golden opportunity to seize power, A acted like a scheming true crime villain. To secure his own claim to the throne, A buried Tutankhamun as fast as humanly possible in a tiny, unworthy tomb. And the ultimate betrayal? A took the massive, beautifully decorated mega-tomb that was originally intended for Tutankhamun and just kept it for himself when he died.
Let's move on to our fourth and final section, the threat of tomb raiders, the ultimate nemesis.
So all of this incredible engineering, the political maneuvering, the extreme paranoia, it was all driven by one relentless enemy. Because no matter what the builders did, highly organized, ruthless robbers always found a way in. Djoser's Step Pyramid featured 3.5 miles of confusing dead ends, but thieves still navigated it. For Mastaba 17, robbers literally spent months in pitch-black darkness chiseling a 60-foot tunnel through solid limestone bedrock with pinpoint precision just to hit the burial chamber directly. The threat was so severe that by 300 BEE, the wealthy elite in the city of Philadelphia just stopped building defensive monuments entirely. They accepted defeat and simply hid their mummies at the bottom of secret 40-foot deep shafts in the bare desert.
Now, knowing their physical tombs would likely fail against these incredibly dedicated thieves, wealthy elites relied on a magical contingency plan called cartonnage. Think of it kind of like a burner body. Because it was so beautifully painted, often featuring gold skin and blue hair to symbolize divine status, it acted as a magical stand-in. The idea was, if the physical mummy was damaged or destroyed by looters, the soul could inhabit the cartonnage instead, ensuring they still had a vessel to survive the afterlife. The aftermath of these ancient break-ins is truly staggering to see. Archaeologists today are basically detectives, sifting through the wreckage left behind by deeply pragmatic looters. You see, the ancient robbers weren't careful, and they certainly didn't care about the religious significance of what they were destroying. They just wanted high-value, easily transportable loot. They would hack through massive stone sarcophagi, rip open that protective cartonnage, and violently snap the mummy's bones to pieces just to steal the magical, solid gold amulets hidden deep between the linen bandages.
But perhaps the most bitter irony in this thousands of years-long war is the Egyptomania craze. In those hidden desert shafts in Philadelphia we talked about, archaeologists found mummies that had successfully hidden from ancient thieves. They had remained entirely unbothered, safe in the dark for 2,000 years. But when they were finally discovered, their necks were found violently twisted and snapped so that their golden masks could be ripped off. And actually, scratch that, they weren't destroyed in antiquity, they were looted just a century ago, when wealthy European treasure hunters scoured the desert, destroying ancient bodies just to steal living room decor for their private collections. Human greed outlasted the pharaohs.
So, I'm going to leave you with this central paradox to think about. The pharaohs built these massive, impenetrable mega-tombs specifically to avoid being erased and forgotten, right? And by all practical measures, the tombs failed. The vaults were breached, their treasures were stolen, and their bodies were smashed. But ironically, the chaotic, true crime scenes they left behind, the tunnels, the hasty burials, the elaborate artwork, it fascinated us so much that it made them the most famous names in all of human history. They may have lost the architectural war to the tomb raiders, but their obsession practically ensured they achieved the eternal life they were so terrified of losing. Thanks for exploring this incredible